Namaste. I'm Vivek Govekar. Welcome to the Kundalini podcast. That was then, this is now. This is episode 24. So here we are, one more video. And I'm sorry, between episodes 18 and 20, or 18 and 19, I took a long gap. I realized that I have a lot of subscribers and people rely on me on this, and they're actually listening and following. So now I've decided to post these more frequently. Sometimes life just interferes and you want to do something, but you cannot. But this is a very interesting topic, Kundalini, spirituality, meditation, especially from the point of view of someone who awakened without actually wanting an awakening, and that person might be able to help people that have awakened. Today, I'm going to shed some light, talk about some of these things that differ from traditional notions of Kundalini and my personal experience. Now, remember, I get a lot of posts and comments about people who say, hey, well, this is supposed to be what Kundalini says. This is supposed to be what it is. You're right. I don't want to say that you are wrong in your assumptions about what a person with an awakening should look like and what traditional guidelines say person should follow, a person should do to get an awakening, what he should do during an awakening, and how he should be performing his daily duties while he's attempting to be awakened or enlightened. Okay? None of that is wrong. Okay? But if I do something differently in this 21st century setting, it's because I have realized that some of those things have been misrepresented. They're not wrong. So the questions I get about, hey, you aren't someone posted you're supposed to be a virgin. No, you're supposed to be celibate. There's a difference. You're supposed to be a vegetarian, you're supposed to be a virgin, you're supposed to be blah, 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 and you're not. So, hey, you must be a fake. I'm going to address those things once and for all because I've had enough of this. So next time someone puts a comment like that, I'm going to put this. First of all, I've never forced anyone to believe in Kundalini, in my awakening. This is information because this is necessary. Recently, this person, and he's a well-wisher, I'm sure he wants the best for me. But there's been a series of back and forth going on in comments between me and him, and he just refuses to believe anything I'm saying and tells me about some gurus and gives me videos and says, look, listen to this, don't destroy your life, you're gonna go crazy or whatever. That's the other misconception is if you awaken your Kundalini accidentally, or if you have been doing something to awaken your Kundalini, you are gonna end up crazy, you're gonna go mad. So he sends me a link to this video. And in this video, this very traditional guru from India says the same thing. Hey, if you did something wrong and you got your Kundalini awakened by mistake, sorry, nothing can help you. And I'm going to address this because this is dangerous information. Let me start first by assumptions that I just mentioned about being a virgin, being a vegetarian, and all that. In any religion, I'm going to take a broader scope of all religions using this example. I have said this before in my blog posts as well as in my videos, but this is a perfect illustration now that somebody has mentioned it and sent comments. Religion begins when someone awakens, right? One guru, prophet, whoever you want to call it. And he says the same thing. They're all monotheistic religions. Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism, you name it. Taoism, Zen. They approach this reality differently, but they all admit or acknowledge that it is oneness, one reality. Okay? So now, if it's oneness and one reality, but different prophets have talked about it, then by fixating on the prophet and saying that's the one true person, that's the only one. Well, if he's saying there is one God, and if some other prophet also says there's one God, and that we are in this oneness, understand that this reality has been expressed differently in different cultures at different times. It's like the elephant, the story with the elephant. There's these blind men who are touching the elephant and trying to see which part of the elephant actually represents what an elephant looks like. So one of them is touching the tail, the other one is touching the trunk, someone is touching the tusks, one is touching the legs, big trunks. And each one has an assumption. One is like, oh, it's like a snake because he's touching the tail. The other one says, no, 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 this is more like a tree because I'm touching the legs, right? If you're unawakened, if you yourself have not had a Kundalini awakening and all you're reading is these guidelines given in scripture, you have to be celibate, you have to be a vegan, right? You are going to have a misunderstanding of what to emphasize. And only after someone awakens can they say, oh, you know what? That's right, but it's not to be exercised or implemented like this. It's supposed to be implemented this way. Okay. So, from an awakened person's point of view, you have to take my awakening at a face value and know that I'm telling the truth and not just making this up. If you don't accept that, hey, this is not for you. I'm not here to convert atheists or convert people who don't already believe or have some form of belief in this system or this whole spiritual methodology. I'm not here to convert you. I'm here to help people who do believe and who know that I'm telling the truth. The rigidity comes from unawakened people not knowing what's going on and emphasizing the wrong things. This has been the story of every religion. Why do we have so many wars? And why do we have so many fights? My religion is better. I'm doing this. These are the social practices that came after the religion was formed. And usually it's the bearers, the keepers of the flame, the followers that create all the mischief through misguided notions. They think they're doing right. So let's tackle veganism, celibacy, and other aspects of looking like a saint, looking like a monk, and following those practices rigidly or only following yoga. Here's the thing. If you eat a vegan diet, you are more likely to have a smoother Kundalini awakening. Yes, absolutely true. But how veganism is practiced, you have to be a vegetarian. If you're killing an animal and eating its karma, then that's sin. That's rigidity and social practice. Someone put that into the whole practice. For what reason, I don't know. It's the story of the Zen monastery. In a Zen monastery, there was a ritual where they prepared a big feast and they would always have this ritual. Now, they had a cat. This cat would come and eat the food, right? So the abbot, the main chief monk, said, hey, let's tie up this cat to a post. And they did that because the cat was eating the food. And they would do that every year so that the cat wouldn't spoil the food before somebody ate it after the ceremony. Then the abbot died and the old monks died, and maybe the cat died too, and a new cat came in, but the ritual remained. So tying the cat to a post became part of the ceremony. Okay? Now we laugh at it. But this is exactly what we are doing with this whole celibacy and virginity thing. Yes, the energy works from your seminal fluid. The seminal fluid gets sucked up, and that is being used to drive this energy. So, chastity and celibacy are important, but not to the point of that you had sex, that's it, sin, you're a sinner. Again, rigidity and ignorant, unknowing uh, compulsions on people. So if you take it from the sinner, the punitive point of view, if you didn't do it, then if you had sex or if you had some meat, you're all wrong. You're fixating on the wrong things. Those things were put in place so that the process goes smoothly. Okay? I'm a married person. I was married when my Kundalini awakened. So within the bounds of my marital duties, the sexual act is part of it. Celibacy, in my sense, because now that I see the Kundalini takes the energy, takes the seminal fluid, it's called Urdhva Reta. I don't know how this process works. Anatomically, as a medically trained professional, I find it hard to believe myself. But the seminal fluid gets sucked in. I can feel it. And Gopi Krishna talks about this as well. It gets sucked up the spine or somewhere. So that process, as it's happening, you understand why you don't want to spend or waste that seminal fluid and why people have been asked to follow celibacy. And remember, celibacy or remaining a virgin is not what it says. Brahmacharya is the word in Sanskrit, which is slightly different from celibacy. Celibacy means just staying away, abstaining from sex. And brahmacharya means the face of Brahma. So there is a limited utility of that sexual act, only limited to the bounds of your marriage for procreation, and not frivolously wasting that seminal fluid, because that's energy for the Kundalini. Veganism, again, if I when I eat a vegan diet, I feel much better, lighter, easier. It's beautiful, and the energy flows much faster. Hence, a vegan diet. If you've come from a meat eating family, or in my case, a fish eating family, my family is from Goa in India. It's a coastal part. And we are from the Brahmin caste. So typically, that's a very vegan, traditionally rigid about eating vegan food. Yet, my family, because they lived around the coast, traditionally, over many centuries, developed the habit of eating fish and still remained Brahmins. So there are exceptions, right? If once you understand the purpose why those rules were put in place, you lose some of the rigidity. So during a Kundalini awakening, it helps to be somewhat chaste and celibate, but there is no rigidity needed, or you're not a sinner if you have had sex. There is some benefit from having a vegan diet. So most of my diet is vegan, raw vegetables, raw fruit, but once in a while I'm going to have some meat just because for the taste. I eat a smaller amount of meat now, and there's less craving for meat anymore in me. But if it's offered, again, if I start putting rigidity there, then the ego, spiritual ego develops, and that becomes a fixation. You don't need any fixations, either of the prohibitive kind or of the permissive kind. Look, I can do this, I can do that. That's the permissive kind of ego. And look, I stay away from these things. I am so serious about being a vegan or celibate. That's ego of the prohibitive kind. You don't need either. You need a calm, easygoing mindset. Once in a while, if you had sex or if you had meat, it's okay. For the majority of your time during this process, if you're celibate, it's going to help you immensely. If you're going to be a vegan, that's going to help you immensely. Focus on that. Focus on the process, not where you slipped up. And don't keep beating yourself up for those things. Okay? That's the best way I can describe this. My entire goal throughout this process of explaining these things through these videos has been to help people remove the rigidity, to help remove these things where you're supposed to do this and you're not doing this, that kind of misconception, misunderstanding. All these things driven by ignorance, things driven by tradition, and only that and nothing else. Okay, that's what an awakened person can do for you, is remove those things. So don't come back and argue with that person and start telling him, oh, no, you're fake because this is what I read in scripture. Are you awakened? No. Then, if you ask me like 10 questions in a row and send me a question every day with the attempt to debunk me, and I respond back in somewhat rude way and say, hey, listen, I don't have time for this. This is just not helping either one of us. Then don't say that, okay, look, I proved that this guy is for fake. You're wasting my time. I'm a person living in this world and I make these videos. I'm not, in any way asking you to believe them. But I know what I have. And through 8 years of going through this process, I have figured some things out. And I'm expressing them and telling you these things. So I hope that was helpful. And I hope that shed some light on things like being a vegan or being a virgin and how they fit into this whole thing. As always, it was a pleasure to make this video. Please leave comments for me and questions for me, and I would love to answer them. Be well. Thank you.